Hello. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of all-in-one tanks. All-in-one tanks are something that's, come on the scene here probably in the last 10 to 15 years. The purpose of them in general and who they're marketing and catering to are for people who generally are looking for smaller tanks and they're looking for uh, just they're generally for people who are new to the saltwater marine aquarium hobby and looking for a simplistic way of getting the equipment that they need without having to sit there and try and piece all these different components together. So, in that respect, all in one tanks uh, are an attractive option for somebody new in the hobby because you sit there and say, okay, a new guy comes on a forum, he comes on a group or something like that, and he goes, okay, I'm looking for I want to do a 20 to 30 gallon tank. What do I need? And then you go, okay, well, you need a power head, you need a protein skimmer, you need a tank heater, you need an RODI, you need, and you just start running through this whole list of things. And so by the time this poor guy gets done reading the list, his head's spinning and just like, oh my gosh, what the heck is all this stuff and what is it supposed to do and why is it so expensive? Well, with an all-in-one tank, generally speaking, most of these components you're already getting in a single setup. Some of the more popular ones, the Fluval 13.5 gallon is a popular choice for those who are looking at, just looking at getting a small nano tank and on the cheap, because usually you can find one for 160, and sometimes even find them as cheap as $100 on a crazy sale like Black Friday or something like that. So, anyways, and they come with a light, they come with a built-in little sump chamber and filtration and everything. And so, realistically, all you need to do is put in maybe a small little power head and a tank heater, some live rock sand, and RODI salt premix, and you're good to go with these tanks. But anyways, once the so that's one of them. The BioCubes, of course, from Coralife are the other really popular choices because a lot of people like the cube tank footprint. Um, the the issue that you run into with a lot of the all-in-one tanks is that, like many other things, when you're letting a manufacturer decide, okay, what's the cheapest way we can put this tank all together and maximize profits, they tend to cut corners on things. And so one of the problems you find is that for a lot of the all-in-one tanks, people go, oh, well, this filtration system's not quite putting out what I want it to do, so they upgrade that. Or then maybe they decide to get the dedicated little nano protein skimmer unit that goes specifically with it because nothing else fits. Or then they decide that the lighting's inadequate, which in a lot of cases it is, for it, particularly if you're looking at like SPS type corals and stuff like that. A lot of the all-in-one lightings they're just not really built for the more demanding type of corals. So, anyways, once you start taking a look at all these things and all these costs of upgrades, once you start upgrading the various different components of an all-in-one tank to make it more suitable for what you want, at that point, you might as well just build the tank yourself. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot more cost effective. It just takes a little more research and effort on your part initially, and then once you've got all your components there, then it's a better setup, and you've saved yourself a fair bit of money. So, anyways, these are some of the, kind of some of the basic advantages and disadvantages. Now, there are some, in my opinion, that are better than others. A lot of people, I would say if I were looking for a good value all-in-one system, I would look primarily at the IM Nuvo Fusion in terms of a balance for bang for buck, so to speak. Now, none of them come with lighting, but believe me, that's actually a good thing because realistically, with the exception of maybe like those Red Sea tanks or something like that, the Red Sea all-in-one tanks, which by the way are outrageously expensive for setups. I mean, you're talking like spending $1,000 just to get a 20-gallon with a stand and lighting and everything else. But I mean, it's outrageously expensive. But realistically, for most of the all-in-one type setups that are affordable, the Fluvels, the BioCubes, those sorts of things, they are just, really inadequate, in my opinion, for good coral grow lighting. Virtually anyone who tries to hold on to these tanks long term ends up upgrading their lighting in some way, shape, or form. So, anyways, it's a good thing that the IM Nuvo Fusions do not have lighting, because that allows you to, rather than spending money on lights that you're just going to kind of go, well, I'd really like to upgrade it to something else, and then having to go and spend additional money on the lighting. They focus on the components that are solid. The display on them is great. They use, generally speaking, a lower iron glass, so the display is really good quality on the IM Nuvo Fusions. And of course, then you can spend the money on the light that you actually want. A popular choice, particularly for the smaller IM Nuvos, is the AI Prime, which is a wonderful light, by the way. But anyways, so that would be one of them. The other one, if you're looking specifically, you're wanting something like the BioCube, but maybe a higher build quality, look at JBJ. Those are better built tanks. There are, of course, the other extreme, which is the super high-end stuff like Red Sea, Waterbox, stuff like that. Which, yes, they're great tanks, and they're well built, they're well made, and they're very comprehensive and all inclusive. But the amount of money that you're spending for what you're getting, to me, it's just ludicrous, the amount of money you're spending on such a small tank. That it's just, in my opinion, it's just not a good value. But that's, once again, that's my personal opinion. I'm sure Red Sea and Waterbox folks are, lighting the torches, coming after me now with pitchforks. But anyways, the point is that if you're looking for that kind of middle ground sort of value in saying, okay, what's something that I'm not going to have to spend a terrible amount of money on, but still getting a decent quality all-in-one setup, then I would say that IM Nuvo Fusion and JBJ are probably that best sort of sweet spot for all-in-one tanks. Personally, my favorite of the bunch, if I could pick one based on dimensions and specs, would be the IM Nuvo Fusion 30 long, simply because you get a smaller all-in-one tank, but you're still getting a 3-foot long tank, which gives you some good stocking options for fish that you can't necessarily do with the cubes and some of the other smaller all-in-one type tanks. I believe they run about $350, and then of course, you have to add in a light on top of it and everything, but they have a built-in sump chamber in the back, flow for filtration. So realistically, you buy an IM Nuvo Fusion, you get a good go ahead on your own and get a good quality light like an AI Prime or something like that. Also heard good things about the new Red Sea lights, so you might want to look into those. You could also, in addition, you would get a power head of some kind and then a tank heater. And realistically, for mechanical equipment, that's pretty much all you need for your tank right there. So anyways, that's just kind of an overview and recommendations for all-in-one tanks. Ideally, if you can build one through your own components and research the individual components and build it yourself, that is best. But at the same time, I also understand just the sheer overwhelming factor of all this new equipment that you're dealing with getting into the saltwater marine tank world. You're just, you're looking at all these different components and going, oh my gosh, I can't keep up with all these terms and figuring out what all these different components are. So anyways, that's my recommendation, is, take a look at it, determine what it is that's best for you. In some cases, the all-in-one tanks, for certain ones, like I said, IM Nuvo Fusion, JBJ, are a decent value, and particularly if you're looking to try and get an all-in-one tank without having to deal with all the different components, scraping them together. And that's all I've got, and thanks for watching.